Hi guys, Heath here again with another repair video. What we're going to be doing today is replacing the head cables or FFC cables that run from the subboard up to the print head. The first thing that you will have to do is make sure to power down the printer, of course, and unplug it, and then we will remove the blue covering. You can find out how to remove the blue cover from a previous video as well. Okay. So the first step that we're going to do after we remove that blue cover is we have to start unplugging the FFC cables back here from this subboard. Alright, once the blue cover will be at the back of the machine, you'll notice that you'll trace the FFC cables back through, and there's 3 of them plugged into a subboard. So what we're going to do, one at a time, we'll remove these cables, being careful not to booger them up or anything. I'll slide these out. Make sure to pay attention to the sequence that they're in. It's a little weird on this one. We have 5 that will be towards the outside, number 4 will be in the middle, and number 6 will be on the inside. It is a good idea to put some masking tape or some sort of tape around these FFC cables so that way you can match them when you put your new ones in. So I'll put a little piece of tape around here so that way they stay together. Alright. This little collar right here helps prevent RF interference. So we'll slide that off, and this will need to go on your new set as well. So we just slide that backwards real gently. Try not to drop it because it is kind of fragile. Okay, so now that I have those unplugged, there's a little white bracket that we'll have to take off that holds that FFC cable in place. So we'll just pull that back, slide it over the outside of it, and that way I can get those free. We'll go up here to the front side and pull those cables straight up out of that hole. Alright, just like so. Then from the front here, we've got to remove it from its bracket. This would be another good spot to place some tape, so that way we can get these folds done correctly. Like so. And then we can pull this out of that bracket. Slide it from the bottom first, and then out. Okay. To get it out of these little plastic clips here, you got to be real careful so they don't bend or break. We have to actually give it like a little bit of a bow, kind of bend the FFC cable down so it pops right out. Okay. To get to these, I like to release the head, flatten it out so I can get to it a little bit easier. Slide those all out as well. Alright, so now we've removed them from the back of the machine. The next step we'll have to do is actually remove the head from the machine. To do so, we'll have to remove this gray cover first. There are 3 screws that attach it. The first one is up here on the top. Second one over here on the side. And then the third one back here in the back. Okay. When you're lifting this gray cover off, be gentle with it. Lift it straight up. There are wires connected to it, so you don't want to completely remove it without removing the wires first. You'll notice that you'll have a gray one with a green stripe on it. That is to your blinky light. A little blinky light to get it out, you push the wire up from the bottom. If you need to, take a small screwdriver and push it up. So that way you can take this little O-ring off. Once you remove the O-ring, you can just pull that wire out and set your gray cover to the side. We'll take the gray wire, put it to the side. And then the next thing we'll do is remove the little retaining clip for the FFC cables. Just pull straight up on it, set it to the side, and we can pull those out. Now the first FFC cable, you'll notice, is plugged into this little joint board here that controls the media sensor. Alright, so we can just pull that straight back. Okay, this would be another good spot to put tape. It is very important to get these folds correct. This little plastic clip will not come on the new ones, but it is not necessary for the machine to function. Put a piece of tape there. Okay. So now with that removed, then I can actually remove the head compartment. The print head will be at the bottom, and then it'll have the dampers above it. So to remove this compartment, we have to remove the retaining bar first. I'll take a pair of needle nose pliers or maybe some tweezers to remove this spring. Pull it off the hook, set it to the side, make sure not to lose it. And remove the 3 screws. Notice that these have washers around them. The middle one here will be shorter than the 2 outside, so make sure to put the correct ones back into the correct holes. And then the 3rd one is right here. Then I can slowly feed this bracket out through the side here, making sure not to snag any of the ink tubes. Set it to the side. Okay, now we're going to disconnect the wires that connect to this little joint board. First one is the gray one with one white wire. You grab it by the wires and pull slowly backwards. You don't want to yank it or yank any of the wires out of their connections. Push it to the side. Next, we'll pull out the 2 black wire one, right below the previous one, and pull it to the side. It is connected over here on the side and tucked up underneath a little bracket, pointing at it with my screwdriver. So I'll just kind of push those out from underneath it. If you need to, use your needle nose pliers, and it's easier to do it one wire at a time. They just slide right out. And then we can tuck that back to the side as well. The next thing we're going to remove is the one last screw that holds this entire assembly into the carriage itself. We'll remove this one screw that's located right here. And then we can slowly grab it by here and lift this out. You kind of have to tip it backwards and kind of wiggle it back and forth, and then it should come right out. Okay. Now you're welcome to remove the ink tubing from their elbows, or the little joints that go in there, or you can just tilt the head sideways to see where those cables go into. You will need a number 1 Phillips head screwdriver, because these screws are a little bit smaller. There's one here on the top, and then 2 on this side. Okay, once we've removed those 3 screws, we can grab it by both sides here and just wiggle it off. Okay, we will set the carriage down gently, make sure that it doesn't turn over because you don't want anything to drip. And then I can look at the print head. The print head has a housing around it that kind of holds everything together. We will have to remove that. There's 3 screws associated with it, 2 on this side and 1 up in this corner. Also, we'll need a 1mm Phillips head screwdriver to remove them. You will note that these screws are a little bit smaller than any of the others. Make sure to keep these separate. Also, be conscientious about the face of your print head as well. You don't want to kind of rub your fingers or your hands up against it either. When you pull the print head out, pull it straight out gently. I'm going to set it here to the side for just a second. And then I'm going to make sure to put my little sponges back in. They fit from side to side there. What their purpose is they actually prevent like overspray getting up into that compartment. It'll look like that. So we can set this to the side now. Okay, so back to the print head. We're going to remove the FFC cables from the print head. Also note which one goes into which slot. 0 will go to this top one right here. And 0, 0 will go into the underneath one. Alright, we can set the print head to the side. Now the FFC cable has been removed. And since I've put tape on them, that way I will have to take my new FFC cables and bend them in the same positions. Okay. So then when I get ready to put this back on, I will do this in reverse. Okay. I like to start from the back and work my way forward. So what I'll do is lay these across, feed those through, tuck it down through the hole here. Make sure to go underneath the white tubing. Okay. And then it'll make that little twist right there. I have to remember to put on this little collar. It helps prevent that RF interference. So what I'll do is feed these through one at a time. Okay, slides up to about where that little curve will be. And I'll start with number 6 and work my way towards the outside. Try to line the FFC cable up so that way it's perfectly in its slot, and then gently press it in. Alright, push the tape down on it. Go on to number 4. Line it up as well. If it feels like it's not going in, sliding in, always pull it off. Check the corners, make sure they're not getting folded up or anything. And take your time. And then the last one, we're facing, take it back. If it makes it easier on you, you're welcome to remove this little piece of tape. And on the new FSC cables, they will not have tape. So you can use the existing ones from the old ones. Alright, so then once we have those in, you'll feed the FFC cables underneath this clip, pop it right into its little hole, and that way it stays flat. Then we'll come back to the front of the machine and we'll feed the FFC cables right underneath this bracket right here. Fold them down. Tuck it up underneath the big one first. Kind of give it a little bit of a bend. Like so. And if you kind of push them forward and then down, they'll fit right into its groove. Alright, next thing I'll do, start feeding them through here, giving them a little bit of a bend, helps them be able to tuck in a little bit better. So you gotta push it from the back and kind of make it concave a little bit. Fit it in there. I'll be real gentle with this because it's all taken apart, and kind of push it to the side so that way I can get to the other ones. Okay. We'll flatten it out a little bit. Tuck it underneath. Try not to bend them too much. And then the last one. Tuck that one in. Okie dokie. And then I'll pull the head back over to this side. Okay. So when these fold, you'll notice that the outside one tucks into both of these. So it's like a really weird bend there. That's why I said kind of tape it together so that way you can match the new ones. You got the middle one, which will be 0, 0, 0. That plugs into the little sensor board. Then you have 0 and 0, 0 that will plug into the head. The 0 one will need to be on the outside. The 0, 0 will be on the inside. Okay. I'll grab my print head and I will go ahead and plug in 0 and 0, 0. I like to do 0, 0 first. 0, 0 goes into the bottom slot here. Line it up. Oops. So that way that the metal connectors line up with each other. Like so. So then once you get it lined up, if you flip it over and kind of give it this angle right there, it gives you a little bit more of a better way to push it in with your thumb. Then you can flip it back this way and do the bottom one. Okay, so now that we have those plugged back in, I can put it back into its housing. Alright, you'll notice it has 2 holes on this side, so I want to line it up that way as well. Make sure my little foam is inside here. And then I slowly slide it up in there, making sure not to scratch it or anything. Make sure it's nice and snug. And then I can put my screws in. Remembering that the smaller screws with a smaller head on it will be the ones for the head. And you want these just finger tight. You don't want to over tighten or they can strip the holes that they're in. So now that we're ready to put the dampers back onto the print head, I make sure that there's no twist in them. Kind of pull those back and keep it as if it was in the printer itself. I will line my damper holes directly up with the post on each of the nozzles and make sure that they line up before I push it down. Because what can happen is if you do it at an angle, you can cause a leak. So then once you have them lined up, they should just kind of push together. You'll have a little bit of resistance on all of them. Give a little wiggle, make sure it's all nice and tight. And then we can put back in its housing screws. Please note that you should not over tighten these screws. You can strip out the holes pretty easily. Okay, so now we're ready to place this back into the machine. Okay, so we'll slide this down here, making sure none of the wires are caught up. Line it up, should drop right down in there. You have to kind of tilt it backwards to get it over some of these little connectors. Make sure the tubing's not getting caught up. And the wires aren't tucked up underneath anything. Give it a little wiggle. Pops right into place. You might or might not hear that click. Okay. So now I'm going to put back in the first set screw to hold that housing into place, just located right there in that first hole. It is one of the longer ones with the washer. A magnetic screwdriver makes it a lot easier. Okay, now with the black wire, I'll feed it under the FFC cables. And I'll make sure to put it underneath that little clip over here on the side. Doing one wire at a time makes it a lot easier. And using needle nose pliers to fit them under there as well. And I'll pull it forward. Slides right up underneath there. Second wire, same thing. Okay. So once I have those snaked through here, around that little, underneath this little clip here, you can do them one wire at a time. This will feed over here and plug into the board. Okay, then I can tuck this wire out of the way. The next wire will be the gray one. Lines right up, slide it in. There we go. Okay, now we'll take these FFC cables, bring them forward. Probably have to do this little bend in the ribbon cable. But you need to line that up with this little sensor board here. And then push that in gently. Okay, then we can replace the FFC cable retainer. Slide it over top of it, and push down and back towards the back. Right there. So after I put on my FFC retainer bar, it kind of holds it in position, I'm going to feed through this little bracket. So I kind of tuck it in, just be gentle with it. Feed it through. Okay. So after you feed through your little retaining bar here, we need to put the 3 screws back in. And these were the ones that did have the little washers on them. There's 2 different sizes. There's 2 big and 1 medium. All right. The medium one goes in the middle. These 2 go towards the outside. I'll start from the far right one here. Place that one in. And I line it up with its hole. And what I'll do is just get it just tight. So that way I can still pivot the thing back and forth. The next one I'll put in is the spring. Some tweezers or needle nose pliers really help with this. I will take it off the inner hook that's connected to the carriage, take my needle nose pliers, stretch it across, and hook it onto the metal bracket. Next, I will put on my next outside screw right there in front of the spring, kind of pushing the bracket forward and tightening it down. Last but not least, it's the middle one that's a little bit shorter. And just put it down in there snugly. Okay, so now we're ready to put the gray cover back on. First thing we'll need to do is feed the blinky light up through the middle hole here. We'll take our little black O-ring, slide it over top of it. Just kind of push down on it. And then pull the wire from the bottom so it fits down in there. And if you need to, use your fingernail or thumbnail and kind of push it down in there. Alright, so we'll take this slack, kind of tuck it up underneath here so it's kind of out of the way. And then as I'm pushing this down, I want to make sure that my white tubing is stacked properly so I don't have a twist in it. The white tubing will fit up into this slot right here, while as the colors will be underneath. Make sure the FFC cables are not boogered up either. Okay. So as I'm pushing down, I'm kind of tucking all at the same time. Have everything lined up. Then I can put my screws back in. First one will be up here on the top. Try not to over tighten these because they can crack that plastic. One over here on the side like before when we took it off. Alright, and that is replacing the FFC head cables on a DTG Viper.